Well, ladies and gents, boys and girls, the time has finally come. We have some really big news for you today. If you don't already know me, I am Josh, your online driving instructor. This is going to affect thousands of students, and if you are taking your driving test anytime soon, this is going to affect you big time as well. If you're training to be a driving instructor or you want to find out any more about me, please feel free to join the Discord in the description below or have a look at my Patreon in the description below as well. If you like this update and you want to hear more, do not forget to like and subscribe. Press that button. DVSA have just emailed and given the big okay. They have said they are lifting the COVID-19 restrictions that were put in place for both driving tests and theory tests in England from Tuesday, the 1st of March, tomorrow, in line with government restrictions ending on the 24th of February. But what does this actually mean for you? Now, I'd really like to hear what your thoughts are about these changes as well. Get them in the description below. What do you think about these changes? How are they going to affect you? Well, the first thing it means is face coverings will now be a complete personal choice for the candidate, the examiner, and I guess the driving instructor. This means it's the same for both your practical driving test and your theory test as well. Just to reiterate, they are saying that it's up to you whether or not you continue to wear a face mask, but you no longer have to. But this one's a little bit more interesting. Driving tests will no longer be terminated early unless the driving candidate's driving is so poor that it's a danger to everyone. Sarah, stay off the road, you know who you are. Another absolutely huge point, driving instructors and whoever is accompanying the driver are now able to sit back in on driving tests. I don't know about you, but I have a number of students that have been absolutely desperate to have me sitting in on the driving test, but we have not been able to. I also won't get as cold and wet while I'm waiting at the test centre. Thank you very much, DVSA. They have also stated that you no longer have to isolate if you have COVID-19. However, they do recommend and would appreciate if you do phone and rearrange your driving test if you feel unwell. Basically, use some common sense. If you're not well, don't go to your driving test, let them know and rearrange it. Now, this is particularly important if you are a driving instructor or you have had someone that has booked your driving test for you. You need to make sure you let people know what's going on because these are really big changes for the driving test. So just to reiterate, up till now, up till now, face coverings have been a more or less legal requirement for your driving test unless you are not able to wear one. That has now changed. From tomorrow, you will not have to wear a face mask, but you still can if you prefer to. Again, during this period, driving tests have been terminated early if the candidate actually failed their driving test, which wasn't ideal because you paid quite a bit of money for the test and you may very well want the full experience that you've actually paid for. Well, that has now returned back to how it should have been, although I fully understand why the change was made. And finally, during this period, driving instructors have not been allowed to sit in on people's driving tests, just because of the high risk and the whole COVID situation. But again, that has now gone back to how it was, and you can now sit back in on the driving test. Hopefully this will have a huge impact on students' nerves, and we'll get back to the good old days. If you're a driving instructor and wondering about standards checks, they used to be around 60 minutes and they've reduced those down to 40 minutes during the COVID period. They are continuing at 40 minutes. So if you have a standards check coming up, make sure you prepare for a 40-minute lesson, not for a 60-minute. Another very important point, driving tests will no longer be cancelled for having a vehicle that is not clean enough inside and outside. However, they are still recommending that you have a fairly clean car inside because, come on, let's not be gross. I wouldn't want someone sitting in my car if it was filthy. If you do, however, get COVID, it is recommended that you actually postpone your driving test for at least 5 days just to give the examiner a chance because he doesn't want COVID. And if he ends up getting COVID, then no one else is going to be able to sit on their driving test. Okay, so normally if you do cancel your driving test less than 3 days prior to your driving test, you would be charged the full amount. However, if it is within the 3-day period and it's due to COVID, if you click on the link below, there is an email there. If you title the email COVID-19 short notice cancellation, and just request that you need to move your driving test or ask your instructor to do that for you. You will not be charged to move your driving test. DVSA are also asking students to continue taking a rapid flow test on the day prior to their driving test before you leave home. Well, I don't know about you guys, but I think this is absolutely great news. We're getting back to normal. Driving tests are back to normal. I've got a number of students who really could have done with my support sitting in the back of the car, and they couldn't have that, and that's delayed them actually taking their driving test. I think it's also a really good sign for everyone that we can get back to a bit of normality now. I think it's also a great opportunity for people to get the full experience of the driving test rather than having to go back early, which I fully understand the reasons why, but it still just wasn't an ideal situation. Or maybe you're a health worker or you work in an important sector and you cannot afford to risk getting the dreaded COVID. Or maybe you're going away on holiday or you have a big sports event coming up. Whatever the reason, you may very well feel that you want to continue wearing a face mask. If this is the case, don't feel pressured by anyone. If you believe you should still wear a face mask, then you make sure that you are wearing one. Just to keep you guys up to date, since the last video, the DVSA are still talking about the 28-day rebooking if you fail a driving test. They are also discussing the eyesight test reading from a tablet to allow evening driving tests. This will get a lot more students on the road faster, reducing the massive wait that we currently have for the driving test. So hopefully we hear some more news about that soon. It is also still in discussion about the 10-day cancellation policy before the driving test, but again, the second I hear anything about it, so will you. I can't remember the last time I sat in a driving test. It was that long and fateful day. I'm sure I didn't look this old. A really interesting point that was made is, will the lack of social distancing and having to wear masks and all of that jazz affect the actual wait time for driving tests? You know, the fact that the waiting rooms are now going to be more readily available. The examiners may not have to wipe down the car quite as much. The examiners may feel less at risk. Will this actually have an effect on how quickly we are able to get driving tests? That's a really interesting question, actually. What do you think? Do you think this will help speed up how quickly we can get a driving test? Or will this not have any difference at all? If this has helped and you want to hear more in the future, don't forget to like and subscribe. I am Josh, your online driving instructor, and I'll see you all about.